ace your ACCA online. So hello South Africa, hello Africa. Right, I have not shared my slides that I'm going to be using. I just finished preparing a few hours ago, but I'll be happy to make those available to yourselves after this. Let me see. Okay, so for those of you who have never seen me, this is my face. I will normally put on our videos so you can see me, but we've in the past heard some people saying when the video is on, it eats up a lot of data. So in other sessions, some people say if the video tends to eat up a lot of data. So we have resorted to always setting out the video and focus on the audio side. However, I'm sure my team, they are here to also support. I know that you can stop me at any time to ask any questions there. You can either write on the corner of your screen there, and my teams, they will pick it up. I want to focus on the talking, but my teams, I've got 3 people who are monitoring the process and listening to any inputs that you may have. If you want to send it through WhatsApp group, for those of you who are connected to WhatsApp, you can do so. If you want to send any inputs or questions through the screen that you type, please do so as well. Okay, this is the first time we're running a revision class online. So it's basically a reflection of what we do on our campus activities, which we are now trying to do it online. So we're doing that as part of eCampus, which is our facility for those who have studied with us purely online. Okay, brief intro. My name is Valentine. Some of you we've met face to face. That is my face there. And I'm the founding CEO of CharterQuest. We've been there since 2010, so it's almost 10 years now since we've been operating. I am a chartered global management accountant. I'm an associate chartered management accountant. I'm a professional project manager. I also hold a designation. I'm a certified international treasury manager. I also am an MBA. So that's my background. I've been teaching for, that's one thing I do, and I do very passionately. I've been doing it for, much as I've spent some time, about 15, 20 years in corporate world, auditor, project manager, finance director. My passion has always been in teaching. So I've been teaching part-time for 10 years, but almost the last 10 years extra also full-time, ACCA, CIMA, CFA programs. So I can say I've got a fairly almost like 15 years experience really knowing what each professional body is looking for, CIMA, ACCA, and all the rest by virtue of the time that I've spent there. It is my hope that I will bring to bear that knowledge to assist you really ace these exams in September. As we are all aware, September exams are going to be PC based. The purpose of this course is not really to go into the PC-based exam. We have individual revision sessions that are running per module and the rest where we'll go into, as well as mock exams and writing on PC. We can mark that. This is I've just summarized here an agenda, what I'm aiming to achieve in the next 3 hours. So we're starting at 12, we want to finish by 2 or maybe 10 past 3. Okay, here's the first challenge. When I was asked to do this session, it came from things that we thought we had addressed, or which examiners also feel has been addressed by virtue of previous concerns, chief examiners for various modules, which continue to feature. And I was asked to say, look, these problems look like they're not only happening in CharterQuest or at CharterQuest students. The examiners are complaining about that across the board, irrespective whether you're a student from Nigeria, from Pakistan, or whatever. So the first issue was, okay, I need to prepare a revision that addresses the most common challenges. Okay, so what I tried to do was to clarify, first of all, what am I trying to achieve, which I hope is something that we will all seek to achieve today, is to really go into the capabilities that the examiners are looking for. There is a set of capabilities that every module is calling for. Obviously, we would not do any justice to this process if we're going to try and go into all the individual modules. So I've picked a few modules, and even each of the modules I picked, I don't intend to zoom into it in depth. This is a generic revision to speak to the issue of capabilities that examiners want you to display, which is common across the modules. The emphasis is slightly different, whether fundamental level or professional level, and share with you what examiners are saying and what I think we can do to address that. Now, for us to achieve that, there are 4 things I have tried to outline in terms of what I want to achieve. I'll spend some time into the main capabilities expected and examined. Again, I've just picked a few modules at random. In no particular order, I try to make sure there's 1 or 2 on F level, there's 1 or 2 on professional level and all the rest. But the things are quite common, but yet very pervasive in terms of the problems that students face. Okay, then I'll share with you snippets of examiners' concerns for a random sample of modules, and try and show to you what is common in all of these concerns that every module has its own examiner. So every module, the chief examiner will write a report. Okay, and if you trace through those reports, you see there's one or 2 particular things that every examiner is talking about, and these are distinctly different examiners for different levels, different modules, but there's almost one thing that they all seem to be talking about. My goal today is this is not to say every module does not have unique things. This is not a module specific revision. It is to say every module has its own peculiarities, which I'll be happy if you share that. I've taught basically all the modules. If there's any modules that you want to raise, you can always raise that. But my goal is to go into those things that almost every examiner, irrespective of module, is complaining about, with the hope that if they are all complaining about the same thing, if I can spend time and zoom on them, a candidate who is doing 3 modules, 2 modules, or 1 module can learn from them and deploy that same thing to all the 3 modules. So if you still have 6 ACCA modules, you learn from them and say, oh, if this is how I'm expected to think and act on the day of the exam, and this is generic, so I can take it into my SBR, I can take it in my P5, I can take my P4, or my AFM, my PFM, and all those various modules. So I'm aiming to be as generic as possible and as common as possible to things that you can deploy in all the modules, and they will equally be the same. For me to do that, I have to show you some of those concerns that examiners are reading, specifically from the reports that examiners have shared. So that will be the essence of 2. But 3 would then say, okay, now that we know these common concerns, how do we fix it? What can we do between now and September in the way we study, in the way we practice, in the way we attempt the CharterQuest mocks to guarantee or to improve the odds that we can respond to really what is needed on the day of the exam. Now, I've split that, how to resolve it, by taking you into the mindset of the examiner. Okay, philosophically, what is the examiner thinking? What is the headspace? Now, there are 3 ways I want to approach that mindset. I want to start generally by talking about the ACCA intellectual levels. There are 3 levels. We're going to get deeper into that. Those levels are stated in every single ACCA syllabus content. It's the same thing. The first 2-3 pages of every is the same thing. Level 1, level 2, level 3. They deploy that right through. I wonder whether students are paying attention to those intellectual levels. If you're not, we're going to pay attention to it today to help you really grasp the psyche of the examiner. And linked to that will be the exam verb hierarchy. I'll motivate why the exam verb hierarchy is very, very crucial, and how it links to the ACCA intellectual levels, and why you cannot go into any ACCA exam, irrespective of the paper, without a sound grasp of that exam verb hierarchy. Okay, right. Then the next bullet would be, let me see if I can pull out my thing here. The next bullet would be me trying to define this exam verb hierarchy, trying to define the verbs in that hierarchy. There are a lot of verbs, okay? I'm not going to seek to go through every single one. I'll pick up a few. The crucial ones, which are so popular, it means you open any ACCA paper, 60 to 70% would be those ones, okay? I'll pick them with the hope that, because we're only dealing with maybe half of the key verbs, we only have 3 hours, with the hope that the insights you get makes you go back and say, okay, we covered these verbs, I understand them, but there are these other verbs I still don't understand. But I see the approach which was followed on these verbs. Maybe I should spend more time on my own with these other ones so that I can really grasp. I want to show you that half the time you are failing because you are not understanding the capabilities, how they are translated into those concerns, how those are translated into intellectual levels, and ultimately exam verbs, and what you need to be putting on your paper. Okay, I sometimes say candidates don't realize, especially at the professional level or the upper F levels, like the F5, F6, F7, which was now currently called performance management, financial management, and financial reporting, as well as the professional level. Candidates don't realize the deep significance that examiners place on. The exam can be very, very easy. This is what I mean. 90% of the exam, they're asking for your opinion. Okay? They're asking for your opinion. And we all know how to voice opinions. We might think that they're asking for something that you need to read and memorize. Yes, you need to understand what is going on. But 90% of your exam is your opinion. And I'll share with you why I'm saying it's your opinion. The question is, if it's your opinion, does it mean that anything you write is fine? No, not necessarily. And I will share with you how to structure that opinion, but what they are really looking for is your opinion. And the things that you have to be saying to demonstrate that you have a clear opinion on something. Okay? There's particular words you use. I will never be exhaustive with the words, but I'll give you an indication how those words help you formulate answers that clarify your opinion and stance on various things. That's why these verb definitions, I'm going to spend a bit more time on it. And then after that, I will try and operationalize a few of those verbs. I'll operationalize by simply sharing with you things that you've been reading. Okay? I sometimes find my students, and this has been for the last 10 years, people who read a model answer, they sometimes wonder, okay, but what is important in this model answer? What is not important? Obviously, in the exam, you can't write everything on that model answer. That's why it's called a model answer. You find that I do write case studies. I do set exams, okay? There are exams that I set for 3 hours, which when I sit to prepare my model answer, I need 6 hours. First of all, I need 10 hours to set the paper, and I need another 10 hours to prepare a model answer. So here's a paper I've given you to write for 3 hours, which took me 10 hours to design, and maybe 10 to 15 hours to prepare a decent model answer for that paper. So if I who set the exam, I'm taking 15 hours to prepare a model answer, but I'm expecting you to solve that question in 45 minutes. Okay. So obviously, when you read the model answer, it's a decent answer. It's taken me 15 hours to put together, well thought through. I set the paper. I know what I was looking for. So you can read that model answer, and it will still not tell you what is crucial here. Clearly, I was never going to be able to do it because the examiner himself took 15 hours to put it together. But I was never going to be able to do something as good as this. So what is that minimum? What is that absolute crucial thing that I have to be saying, which if I manage to get to and not get to half the quality of the answer in the model answer, what are those? Because usually a decent pass is only 1/3 or 1/4 of an ideal model answer to get you 60% on a particular question. But you need to be knowing what is that 60%? What is that thing that I need to really, really put forward as clearly as I can to help me speak to the mind of the examiner. Okay, that's what I mean by operationalizing the exam verse. For me to demonstrate that I would take model answers that you have seen before. I've spent some time on some of them and highlighted a few things. For those of you who are currently doing SBI with me, I started showing you some of those in my recent SBI class, and I do that a lot of time with my students. I've highlighted certain things that I want to draw to your attention, which you may be reading even those model answers at the time you are preparing, practicing. You may not even be noticing, because it's a 3-page model answer, and you still have to make a choice. What is the most important? The things that you might think is the most important, they are not. And then there are some words being used there which are crucial to show that A, you are answering the question, and B, you are at the required level of depth, and you are expressing the opinion in the manner that is expected of you. And you may be seeing them as just ordinary words, you are passing through them, and you're just, oh no, but yet that is the crux of what the examiner is looking for. So I'll try and operationalize those by trying to bring home some of those things, and then we'll end with some conclusion, which is unit 4. Okay, right. Now I have just put here very quickly, you all would know this. This is the ACCA whole qualification. The vast majority of you are here. Okay, some people come through foundations, and many of you are here. Okay, some are at the applied skills level, some are at the strategic professional level. Some have actually finished the first part, which is essential. You are actually here. Okay. So largely, for this revision class is focused around people who are on the upper echelons of the professional level, so of the applied skills level, and this professional level. Okay. You will notice that ACCA makes it very clear to say there are 3 levels of skills we are aiming to see. They overlap with each other. Applied knowledge. Okay, it starts from there. Applied skills. Strategic professional. Okay. These guys are not joking. You will notice, as I'm going to share with you, that they have translated these 3 different applied skills into how capabilities are developed, and that follows through to all the way to how exam questions are set, and therefore what type of things you should be saying and not saying in the exam. Okay. So we're somewhere around this area. Okay, let me just share with you a few of them. I'm now under ACCA main capabilities. At the beginning of any ACCA syllabus, okay, they develop for you what are the main capabilities. Okay. For instance, I've just put one of them. For somebody who is doing SBA, you take delight in this because it's a module you are currently doing. A, B, C, these are 9. So the examiner will tell you right from the beginning to say, if you want to pass this module, please display these 9 capabilities. Okay. There's the details of the capability inside, but I just want you to notice what I've underlined. Apply. Evaluate. Analyze. Select and apply. Evaluate. Apply. Enable. Apply. Okay. Those words underlined, they define capability. And if an exam is designed to test your capability, there's nothing as dangerous as going to the exam and not knowing what those words mean. Because they are the same words which will be used in the exam. They'll come and say, evaluate this. They'll come and say, apply this. They will come and say, discuss this. Okay? They are testing these capabilities. Okay? If you open advanced audit and assurance, you also see something similar. They will tell you on recognize, I've underlined impact. Impact is not really a capability, but I've underlined it. Okay? Recognizing something is a capability. Impact is not, but I've underlined. I'll subsequently share with you why I've underlined impact. You find that 99% of the problem is here. Why students fail. How to understand the impact of something. And it doesn't matter what is the module. Demonstrate is a capability. Assess and recommend is a capability. Identify and formulate is a capability. Evaluate, identify, formulate. Okay. So, I know each of these one has a bit more detail there, but I'm just trying to focus on what I have underlined, the capability. If you check performance management, which is at the fundamental level, identify and discuss, explain and apply, select and apply, identify and apply, assess. Okay. Strategic business reporting, again picked at random. Apply, discuss, evaluate, critically discuss, apply, prepare, interpret, communicate. Okay. You've been seeing evaluate, apply, assess, evaluate, apply. Almost every syllabus it almost starts with verbs that displace. So there's a one way to write the syllabus. It starts with the capability. That cuts across. So there's nothing as problematic as one way used to write all the syllabus, and every single examiner is coming back to say, candidates don't get it. The same things. Every report comes to, you see this thing, I said in the last sitting, I said in the last report, I said in the last report. You open the next exam for a totally different module. More or less same thing they're talking about. Okay. So it's not by coincidence that they're all using these same words. This comes straight from your ACCA thing to define what capability they want from you. Okay. Now let me share with you what examiners are saying. I've just picked 4. Okay. You can pick any other modules. Okay, let's go to the examiners. What are examiners saying about these things? Okay, what are the different ways these things are manifesting in poor performance on behalf of on part of students? Let me put one. Okay, I put it. Let's say strategic business leader. I've just captured here. I remember in a recent SBL class with my SBL students, one student had asked, this SBL is 4 hours, well, how do I spend my time? And the student said, I used 1 hour to read the whole 12-page case study, and then I used the 3 hours to plan and write my answer. And I kept saying, no, you can't work like that. Okay? Your goal is to open the question. I mean, it might be a 4-hour exam. It is no different from a normal 3-hour exam, in the sense that even with a normal 3-hour exam, it is always best practice to first read the questions and then read the scenario. Even in SBL, you have to first read the question and then read the scenario. But even so, you can't go read a 12-page scenario. Even after reading the question, I hope that by the time you start answering, you will be able to remember. And I insisted that you have to read the question in relation to the exhibits. It's structured into exhibits. You have to match. Every question is designed to be answered from a particular exhibit. Just like in a standard exam, the 4 questions are designed on the section B. There are 2 questions there. The first set of questions is for the first scenario. The second is, they're not aiming to give you 10-page case study so that you don't know which to draw the answer on. They are aiming to set the question according to the exhibit. So you need to link the question to exhibit. Okay? And if you remember, I also did mention, for those of you doing SBL, to say, generally, the first exhibit, because it is introducing the company, it's just like you open a normal scenario, the first 2 paragraphs is introducing the company. The first exhibit would generally be will have information that is applicable to all the questions, question 1 to 5. Okay, so if you want to start matching questions to exhibit, the chances are that your very first question will be relating to exhibit 2. There will normally be 5 to 6 exhibits. The first exhibit is a generic exhibit to introduce the question. They will be remembered with 5 exhibits. There are also 5 questions. Okay, sometimes if there are 4 questions, then there will be 1 question which draws from 2 exhibits. But the goal is to make sure every question is drawn from a particular exhibit. Okay. Now, if you look at the examiner says here, candidates should read the exhibits with the requirements of every task in mind, as this will help them identify which tasks will be drawn on the material in each exhibit. In this exam, the transcript of the director's exhibit 1 included material that was relevant to most of the tasks. Okay? And that statement has been there in almost every SBL thing. To say exhibit 1 would show the rest of the questions. So try and link exhibit question 1 to exhibit 2. question 2 to exhibit 3, and so to speak. Fine, there would be some overlap. So I hope this clarifies that issue if you are with SBL. But the examiner also says, however, alert as to linkages between exhibits. Okay, the exhibit is one company. So exhibit 1 might be talking about what a board of directors meeting. Exhibit 2 might be talking about an acquisition. And that acquisition is linked to a discussion that was happening in exhibit 1, a board of directors meeting. So obviously, if your answer is going, you're expected to understand that there are linkages between the exhibits. That doesn't mean that you must go and read a 12-page exhibit or 12 exhibit or 6, all the 6 before you start answering. It simply means start from question 1. There's nothing as bad as some people say, no, I can start with the third. You don't do that in SBL. Maybe in a normal ACCA exam, which is like AFM or PM, you can start with section B, then you come to section A. Okay? As the case may be. With SBL, you need to start from the first question because of the fact that the exhibits link to each other. Each next one is building on what happened before. If you started in question 3, you don't know what happened in question 2, it can become very, very messy. Okay. I've underlined the word significant. If you remember, I said impact. Impact is not a capability, but I underline it anyway. Okay. I've come back here. I've underlined the word significant issues. That's almost like talking about the impact of the issues. Okay. Right. I've also underlined here covering the most important point. Okay. There's no difference. Here I'm looking from, sorry, where is this thing? This is audit and assurance. It's not even SBL. I've picked up impact here. It's got nothing to do with SBL. Okay. It's the outcomes for AAA. But I'm now currently looking at an SBL examiner's report. He talks about significant issues. Okay. He talks about the most important issues. Okay. The same examiner continues, says, here's why people fail. They are not explaining why the points they are making are significant. Okay, I've underlined it again. People are not explaining why the point is significant. Of what use is this point? Okay, I've underlined that. The examiner says in SBL, to gain technical marks, I've underlined this. You must focus on the scope of the question and the task verbs. I talked about exam verb hierarchy. Candidates are not paying attention to the task verbs. Okay? He also says to gain full marks, they are failing. You need to show why the point you're making is significant. Okay? I started with impact. I underlined most important. There's significant here. There's significant here. Evaluating the significance of the points to the overall issue. The consequences is another name for significance. The relevance is another name for significance. He ends by saying, candidates' demonstration of technical or experimental theory did not score marks in this exam. Weaker candidates' answer often fail to explain why what they said was important. Again, consequence, relevance, significance, significance, significance. Why is this important? They're asking for your opinion, guys. Why are you making this statement? How does that relate to the question, to the big issue? Now, it takes a lot to give. Everybody can say, my name is John. If I ask you, why is your name John? It takes a lot to give me reasons why your name is John. And that And the criticality, the significance of you being called John, it takes a bit more. But that more is exactly what the examiner is looking for. Hence, the examiner says here in an SBL thing, significant, the verbs, and I'm going to show you how these verbs connect back to significance, consequence, relevance. Why are you telling the importance of these? Okay. Now, for those of you who have been part of my class, I did explain last week that you go and understand for SBL the theoretical models. And I thank those who worked on the models for each thing and emailed it to me. I, however, want to raise a limitation to those models. Okay. Candidates are saying, examiners are saying, candidates come with frameworks and models, and this happens across the subjects. You've studied PESTEL, so I've asked you for an environmental analysis. Okay, you want to force PESTEL fully. Okay, when I set the scenario, I mean, well, you can use PESTEL, but maybe there's no technological issue. A model needs to be adapted. One, you need to know the model. But knowing the model is just the beginning. There are some questions that do not ask you to refer to a model. There are some questions that do ask you to refer to a model. If you are, for some reason, asked to refer to a model, then knowing the model becomes very crucial. If you were not asked, knowing the model is important. However, make sure you adapt that model to suit what is being asked. Okay, here are the three things examiners are saying. Yes, models help you, or frameworks, they help you to generate ideas. Technical models can help generate ideas. However, don't just force it because it's PESTEL. I want to force PESTEL. Sometimes, I've been asked before, can you combine models? Sometimes you can take different sides of a model. You can take PESTEL, you can take product, and put that together to answer a question. The point is, make sure your answer is addressing the requirement. If there is a political issue, or if there's no political issue and you're using PESTEL, then don't use the political issue, or don't put there, or don't force something there. So the examiner is saying to us, where you use the model, make sure you structure it to respond to the recipients. If I ask you to write a report, okay, if a report is going to the board is more interested in the content of the report than the model that you are using. The model is an aid. It's a tool to help you think around the issue. You are expected to inherently modify the model. Your issue is you are talking to the chairperson of the board. He is not interested in the model. The model is your tool to help you get to all the issues. He is interested in how you address the issue. So if you have to adapt that model, fine. The examiner also says the problem with models is that it causes you to include points which are not important. You know, like you're trying to force PESTEL, and there is no economic issue. There's no significant, the economic issue is not a major issue. We're looking for significant issues. And then you're just trying to force to make a statement and come up with things that don't exist, which is just you creating, say, what if? So you want to, model should help you apply yourself to the scenario, to what has been given to you, not to force. So if you have to chop aspects of the model and take out in order to make your point to your examiner, please do so. Okay, I think we've said enough of that. Let's just check strategic business reporting. I've just extracted. Look at what comes from the December examiner's report. Candidates are required to appraise, assess, critically discuss, apply their knowledge. That is how the examiner starts. When you see an examiner start, he's basically saying, to my biggest disappointment, I thought candidates know that in this paper, I thought I was clear in the capabilities outlined in the course outline that They would have to appraise, they will have to assess, they will have to critically discuss. I thought I was so clear in the syllabus, but I've just finished marking this exam and candidates are not doing it. They are giving me what is called rote learning. They are reproducing everything they know in the textbook and giving it back to me. The problem is that this is not an appraiser, it's not a critical discussion, it's not an assessment, it's not an application. But you've written 3-4 papers and you think that you've really given them a marking scheme. Examiner starts by saying, even in SBR, this is a numbers paper. The examiner says, yeah, we know accounting, but you need to appraise the numbers that you've calculated. You need to discuss critically so. Okay? That is for SBR. Okay? Let's see what I've just extracted March 20 Advanced Financial Manager Examiner's Report. Okay? I've just drawn one element which speaks to what I'm trying to really try and get to today. The examiner says, look at the heading, the main reasons for candidates performing less well. Okay? This is the one that is very relevant to me today, which I'm trying to address. Okay? All these other ones, they exist, but it's differs per paper. This is in every single paper. Presenting the discursive answers in brief bullet points format, often in incomplete sentences, as statements and not as a discussion-based, analytical, evaluative, narrative. Such answers would never earn you good marks. Okay? It's not different from what the SBR guy is saying. He just puts it different. Candidates are required to do blah, 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 blah. And he's saying they are not doing it. However, several candidates did not do this. It's not different from what this guy is saying, which is a different examiner for a different report. The reasons why they fail is when they get to the discursive parts, they either do bullet point, incomplete sentence, they don't do it as a discussion or an analytical and all the rest. It's the same thing. They're just using different words. Okay. Let's look at audit and assurance, advanced audit and assurance. The examiner starts by saying the aim of this paper is to analyze, evaluate, and conclude on the assurance, blah, 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 in the context of the best practice. Then it says, when candidates attempt examinations at strategic professional level, it is vital that they can apply that knowledge whilst doing these things. A common feature of wicked answers is rote learning without application to a specific scenario. Producing answers to past questions which do not address it. So you're going to study past questions, practice other past questions, you've seen something there, you practice there, you come there, ask something similar. Instead of adapting what you practice, you just want to say all that model answer you saw before. That is what rote learning is. Anytime you memorize things like a parrot, you just want to give it back. Okay? Irrespective of what I give you as a context, you just want to give it back. That is rote learning. You recall things, you dump it to me. This is an examiner. Okay? Rote learning. That comes from SBR reporter. It's a different examiner. Okay? This guy is talking about not being analytic. It's still that rote learning. Okay? Audit and assurance. He too is talking about rote learning. Producing answers that just come from somewhere and just force it there. Okay? Right. Tax. This is a professional level exam. Look at what this guy is saying. He's saying, hello. Of course, we know advanced tax is but why do you think he's saying this is a professional level exam? He's saying candidates are not operating at the level of a professional. And then he goes forward to say, okay, he talks again, they need to apply the information, link that to the scenario. Talks about the need for you to understand, deal with, recommend, and communicate strategic and technical issues. He says candidates sometimes fail to score marks by failing to respond fully to the question requirements. It's referring to the verbs. Or to take account of the details of the question scenarios that establish the parameters for the answer. they need to pay careful attention to the question requirement. It's referring to the verbs and the syllabus area. Okay, those verbs, they go back to those capabilities. Okay, it's a different examiner. Then he concludes by saying, to sum up, candidates need to ensure that they understand what is it they are studying so that they can be able to apply their knowledge to the given scenario. The one given to you in the exam, not the one you practice on at home. Candidates must be able to identify what is important. They've come back to that word significant, impact, important. Do you really know what is important? If I give you a 3-page scenario, can you read it and digest it and pick out the 3 most crucial things? You see, when boards of directors sit, they're not looking for somebody who can tell them everything that's going wrong. They don't have time. They're looking for a book and tell them the top 3 things, the top 4 things, and put it in such a way that it is so clear why those should be their priority at any given time. That is a hard call. You see, if you're not doing that in the exam, because you don't know that that's what they need, okay? This session is designed to help you now understand that's what they need. That's a better problem, because that you can fix between now and September. If you know that is what you're supposed to do, and you have not been doing it, it's a more serious problem. Why? Knowledge puts you in a position to act. Knowledge should help you to act. Now, if you know and you're not acting, why is that a more significant problem? It means that you're left with 1 month. If you know something, you can't act on it. It means you don't have the skill. You don't grasp it well enough. It means you are incapable. Now, it is harder to find that capability between now and September, which is 1 month away. Okay. I am also hoping that when we get to how to fix these issues and the exam verbs, there's the science in terms of how to build that capability. They can be a dawn. Your mind can open. So, oh, okay. I knew it. I just didn't know how to. That's why I put the how these things are operationalized. Okay. Because some people know, oh yeah, I know this is what they want, but I just can't do it. Okay. So I've structured it to also help people who know what is needed, but they just can't do it. By drawing back certain things and bringing it forward to say, this is it. This is it, and show you how simple it can be if only you are looking at the right things and you are paying attention to the right things. It can be very, very simple. So I'm hoping that I can help you address that if you fall in that category. Okay. I've just gone to fundamental level. Look at financial management examiner. Okay. Candidates are writing all they know about the topic without answering the question. It's not different from what the professional level guys are saying. It's rote learning. This examiner just doesn't call it rote learning. But that is rote learning. You go, you memorize things, you just dump it. And you think that is answering the question. This is rote learning. It's another examiner for a different module at a different level saying the same thing. He says it is essential that you have a good understanding of the verbs typically used in ACCA financial management exam questions. This is not only verbs typically for financial management. Okay, the verbs are used across. So he's saying you are the reason why you are doing this rote learning is because you don't understand this. You've not spent time to understand this and really, really know. If you know these verbs, what they mean, there will be no time to do rote learning. There will be no time to dump things. You will be very surgical. Or you will just close your paper and walk out of the exam and go home and say, I can't do this. So I'm hoping that by spending time on this, we can help deal with this issue of rote learning and all the rest. Look at the performance management examiner. Okay, March 2020. They're all recent things. The last March was 3 months ago. In fact, that was the last exam because in June, ACCA postponed exams. Okay. The most commonly omitted questions in section C. If you those who are doing in the fundamental level, section A is normally multiple choice. Section B is short response. Section C is where you have those 25 marks questions. Okay, where you have to discuss, to analyze, to evaluate, to assess. The examiner says here, the most commonly omitted questions in section C tended to be areas where candidates were asked to explain. So once you go to section C, there's a calculation you do. When there's a question which says discuss what you calculated, explain what you calculated, evaluate the results of your calculation, the examiner says candidates run away from it. They either omit it, they don't do it, or when they do it, they do it very, very badly. But the problem is that section normally is 50% of any exam. So accountants, you may have chosen to do accounting because you are good with numbers. And you want it to be, any person who is good with numbers and doesn't want to be in business would either go do computer sciences or engineering or calculus or mathematics. People who are good with numbers and they felt they want to study a commercial field, they are more likely to choose accounting. Okay. So when they give numbers, we rush to calculate. The problem is that at the higher level, your synthesis, your analysis, your evaluation, your assessment of the results of the calculation are 3 times more important than the calculation. In fact, ACCA is taking a view that computers are now doing the calculation, softwares are now doing the calculation, algorithms are now doing the calculation. We need finance professionals who can take the results of those calculations, go into a meeting, and engage in a substantive conversation about those calculations. But now, this examiner is saying candidates are running away from it. Why? Because they don't know how to discuss, they don't know how to appraise, they don't know how to analyze, they just want to calculate and end there. You cannot pass this exam, especially in the higher F modules, fundamental modules, applied skills. Okay, so let's go to the next part. How do we fix it? That section is telling us it's clear, okay? Broad learning is the issue, not knowing the significance of what we are writing and why we are writing it, okay? Not paying attention to the exam verbs. And if you're not doing that, it means you're not displaying the capabilities that the examiner set out in the content for that module. Okay, so I want to talk about so what? What is it thinking? Okay, like I said, this is a general approach, but I want you to take that and go back and revisit your individual subjects. Okay, it cuts across. Okay, I'm hoping that there is a mindset transition in this process. We say, oh, I need to think differently about this thing. Maybe my way of thinking about this exam is just totally from A to B, whereas I should be thinking from B to A. Okay, so that's all this thing would do for you. Shift your mindset. Okay, many people go into ACCA having studied in different countries, okay, in different universities. Every university has its own policy, its own style, its own assessment methodology. So we all come up with different degrees. Then we join ACCA. But there's one ACCA. One style, one policy, one approach to doing things. Okay. And that approach is translated across all the modules. We are caught up between the way we studied when we studied from our university where we came from and the way things were done. We have a particular mindset. And we are just taking that mindset and walking into ACCA with exactly the same mindset, thinking, no, but it's the same accounting. I mean, they're doing this debit and crediting. I did it at school, it's the same thing. No. ACCA has its own way of expecting you to think about these things. It has its own philosophy. It has its own way of how you are expected to reason issues. There's a certain culture. So I'm hoping that I want to first speak to the culture, because I see a lot of first-time people who are doing ACCA exams for the first time. You know, I read scripts and my goodness, this candidate, and some people, they had their, because it was honors, they had cum laude, but you read the script, it's like, but fortunately, I have taught at universities. I still teach at universities, and I've taught ACCA and CIMA for almost 15 years. There's a big difference. In fact, if there was no major difference, there would be no need to have professional bodies. Okay, so let's start with the first thing that you need to really grasp. Okay, most of you would have known this. I don't know if you understand it the way you should. Okay, because I don't see that coming through in how students are answering questions. I have put here what ACCA calls, in all ACCA qualification, you have these 3 levels. Level 1, I've just put it other way. I start with 3, backwards to 1, to this. You find in every ACCA syllabus, they call it level 1 knowledge and comprehension. Level 2, analysis and application. Okay. Level 3 is synthesis and evaluation. This is almost like, if you follow that ACCA qualification structure I pointed out, we say there are 3 levels. Applied knowledge, applied skills, professional level. There's an overlap here. Okay. Now, this is knowledge and understanding. This is analysis and application. This is synthesis and evaluation. I've just tried to give you what these verbs mean, okay? Let me just take out this thing. Okay. I have broadened this. You may not be aware, there is a structure of learning called Bloom taxonomy. That's what ACCA is using. Okay. Bloom taxonomy is a structure of people's cognitive ability. Bloom says there are 5 levels of cognitive ability. That's what I've tried to summarize here for you. I've put here ACCA verb hierarchy. Okay, but this is what I'm trying to say. Let's ignore this side. I'll come back to it. Let's come here. You find here, this level 1 says knowledge and comprehension. This knowledge is what I call here level 1 knowledge. Comprehension is what I've shifted it upward slightly to level 2, understanding. Okay. This level is called analysis and application. Okay. Sorry, application analysis. This is application, level 3. Analysis. This is level 4. Okay. I've just rearranged it. Okay. Bloom called it 5 levels of cognitive ability. ACCA has grouped it into 3. It's the same thing. Okay, but it's got serious implications. Okay. Now, this level, some call it synthesis and evaluation. It is grouped into level 5 called evaluation. Okay, so what am I trying to do with this, and why is it important for you to know this? Okay, you will notice that I have grouped here certain words. I have put there almost like 26. Okay, inside knowledge, I've put here 0.1 to 1 mark. Inside understanding, I've put here 1 to 2 marks. Inside analysis and application, I've put here 1 to 2 per point, or 2 to 6, depending on what you have to do here. Analysis is somewhere between 2 to 3 marks per point. Evaluation is somewhere between 2. There's an overlap. Okay? Right. And I've said here, under knowledge, Bloom simply says our level of cognitive ability grows. Okay? The easiest way to grasp knowledge, is to recall things. This is where rote learning sits. You remember a definition, you give it. You remember something from a certain textbook, you define it. You say everything you know about it, you bombard the examiner. That rote learning you talk about is here. The examiner is expecting you to operate from here upwards. Okay. Now, if you want to understand, this is saying to you, in fact, maybe when you know something, it doesn't mean you understand it. When you can give why something is the way it is, then your knowledge has grown to understanding. So examiners, when they want to test knowledge, and I can tell you now, applied knowledge, applied skills, okay, strategic professional. Here, they only need it here. Okay? They don't need it here. They don't need it here. That's why it's called applied skills. Obviously, you need knowledge to be able to apply. Okay. But now, if I wanted to test knowledge, Bloom says these are generally the 4 verbs that I would use to describe a capability. And it's the 4 verbs that I will use to assess a capability on the day of the exam. I'll either use the word define, I'll use the word state, or I'll use the word list. When I use that word in an exam question, I'm simply testing knowledge. You can do your rote learning, you are fine. You get marks. Probably 0.5 to 1 mark per point. Knowledge grows into understanding. Okay? I sometimes tell my students, my name is Valentine. Okay? I sometimes tell my students, when I'm born, I'm told my name is Valentine. So if somebody asks what's your name, I'll say Valentine. Okay? Maybe I'm between 1 to 2 years old, or maybe 3 years old. I know my name is called Valentine. But at 3, you ask me, so why are you called Valentine? I don't know. Okay? It's because I only have knowledge. I can only recall. My cognitive ability is only as good as being able to recall things and give it back exactly as it was given to me. So you memorize a textbook definition, you give it back. Okay. The chance that by the time I get to 5, 6, maybe I would have been asking my mom, but Mama, why am I called Valentine? Maybe he has been explaining to me. At 2, he explained, I still didn't get it. At 3, she explained, I still didn't get it. But it's an age maybe by the time I enter 6, I might now be able to understand. It's the same explanation, it hasn't changed. But I have a better understanding now. The same things my mother was telling me 3 years, which I think now I get. Why? Because my knowledge has developed into a different level, which is called understanding. Maybe you're called Valentine because you were born in a city called Valentino, for instance. Then I know, oh, there are cities. Cities have names. Okay, and the one where I was born was called, I can explain. So if somebody called me by the time I turned 6, if somebody called, so why are you called Valentine? I can give you the reason. It's because I was born in a city called Valentino. That's why they call my name Valentine. Then my knowledge has grown into understanding. Okay. That is what ACCA calls intellectual level 1. Knowledge and comprehension grouped. These 2. They are asking you, Do you get the what and the why? You see, in life, okay, there's the what. You remember the 5 wise men? There's a what, there's a why, there is a when, okay, there is the who, okay, and this silent one, there is a how, okay. To become wise, you need to find answers to problems, okay. These levels are telling us the what. Here I'm interested in the what and the why. Okay. Here I'm interested in the when. I'll show you with you why. Here I'm interested in the how. So, what is this and why is it the way it is? Now, so my name is Valentine and I'm called Valentine for this reason. If I want to test any of this, I'll use the words like, if I use illustrate, identify, explain, distinguish, describe, no, I'm testing understanding. I'll soon show you the implications of that word and how far you go then with your answer and how far you don't have to go. Because a lot of times, the model answer itself goes further than what it should be going, and you are reading, you don't know what is what, so you just go poo. You end up either not finishing. Time management issues keep coming in and all sorts of things. Okay. But no, any of these, the 2 most popular ones are these 2, explain and describe. Any of these belong to understanding. Okay. Why do I call this when? You basically, but when do I use this what and why? When do I use it and when do I not use it? You are moving now to level 2, which is called application and analysis. In other words, if I start with the same analogy, my name is Valentine. They say, why? I'm called Valentine because. Okay. I'm now 7, I go to school. They're making a roll call. We are sitting there on a line. I'm sitting here. This first person, they call his name John. He said present. This one, Valentine, he said present. I'm thinking that I'm the only Valentine in the world. Why? Because my knowledge, I'm told I'm called Valentine. Okay, I'm told because I was born here. Okay. Now, immediately what I'm thinking is, if I find another person called Valentine like me, the chances are that that person also was born in a city. Maybe he was born, because my mother told me that I'm called Valentine because I was born in a city called Valentino. So my limited understanding of the world is that if I find another Valentine, then the chances are that. So I've now gone to school. Here's a Valentine, here's another Valentine, and now 3 Valentines in class. If I meet this person, I'll be more interested in, oh, I'm called Valentine. I see you're also called Valentine. Were you also born in Valentino? I'm expecting this person to confirm yes. Oh, me too, I was born in a city called Valentino. You find this guy saying, no, I was not born in Valentino. I was born in Cape Town. No, I was not. I was born in Tokyo. Okay? I start wondering now, okay? So why why are you called Valentine? Because my limited knowledge and understanding of why somebody can be called Valentine, as my mother told me, was just that it is because of the place you are born. I have just found 2 other people called Valentine. None of them was born in a city that starts with V. Okay? I'm now moving to here. I'm searching. I'm trying to understand. So when should somebody be called Valentine, and when should somebody be? I'm now entering what is called application. When do I conclude that this person is, and when do I know? Can I use it here? I'm now using application. It's almost like I have learned this thing. How can I apply it in when does it work and when does it not work? When can I use it in the banking sector? Okay, this concept works in the banking sector. It doesn't work in this sector. So application is when you are taking the knowledge and understanding and testing to prove that you know when it works, when it doesn't work. Okay, and then which means you can apply that knowledge to different types of things. So I am taking my knowledge of Valentine and why I'm called Valentine. I'm trying to apply that to two other people that I've found also called Valentine. I might meet the third who says, yes, I'm also called Valentine. I was born in a city in Spain called Villarreal. I'll say, oh, okay. Yeah, the issue is not Valentino. The city must be started with V. So me, I was born in Valentino. He was born in a city called Villarreal. So it is in line with my understanding. But there goes these other two. One is Cape Town, the other one is Tokyo. I'm now saying, oh. So you can also be called Valentine irrespective of the city where you work. Let me now test this concept of Valentine. You then ask, so why are you called Valentine? No, my dad was called Valentine. So he gave me the name. You say, oh. Okay. No, the doctor who gave birth to me was called Valentine. You now say, okay, Valentine as a concept, when you take it to apply it, the name, okay, the concept might behave differently in different. So this is when you use Valentine. This is when you can then say, you see, if you were born in a city called, start with V, then you can use Valentine. If your father's name, but if it was this, then you cannot use Valentine. You have not entered application. You are now being able, you understand the concept of Valentine better enough, better than what this little thing your mother told you, that you can now relate it. That's why the examiner keeps saying, people are not situating that, applying that to the scenario I gave to them. It's almost like me going and say, no, you can't be called Valentine because you were not born in a city called Valentino. Everybody who must imagine. That is what the examiner is complaining about. You just not applying your knowledge to that understanding. You are just forcing things. You are just forcing things. You're taking models, you force. Size of the model, which you just try to force things. So you are failing to rise to this level. You are just staying with what your mother told you, and you think only your mother can be right. And you are taking what your mother said, and you think the whole world must be exactly like what mother said. No. That is why I've given you a scenario. I'm saying, go take what your mother told you, which is in the textbook, which is definitions and theories and understanding, and come and show me whether you know whether it works here. If it works, when will it work? If you can take what your mother told and you show me that it can work here, you show me that it cannot work here. It means that when you are a chartered certified accountant, it doesn't matter what industry you will be hired. Whether you're hired as a senior manager or as a junior manager, or in mining or in banking, you will be able to relate that knowledge to wherever you are. So if you are not doing that, by relating that knowledge to the scenario in front of you, you are just dumping everything you know in that topic without trying to adapt that. You're just telling the examiner that you only see the world in terms of what your mother told you. That means you still belong to level 1. You should be still doing foundations in accounting. You cannot yet operate at a higher level. Okay. Now, put here, what does this thing mean? They are saying, can you relate what you understand? Can you relate it to something to say, when this is like this is what happened. When the person is born here, I think this is what will happen. I think it works here. I think it doesn't work here. Can you relate that what and why? Anytime, anywhere, in any company they put you to work in. If I want to check whether you can relate that, which is these two levels, ACCA has grouped it into one level. There's a first level which is application. Okay, here are the verbs. They will sometimes say tabulate the following: solve, reconcile, prepare, demonstrate, calculate, apply. If they enter analytical level, they use words like analyze, discuss, produce. Okay, here's the first thing I need you to grasp, because we're going to now translate that to how to fix certain thing on the exam thing. Now, okay, I would group these two and put it here. Okay, technically speaking, because this is the highest level in ACCA and it's the professional level and the senior fundamental level, what ACCA actually does is, if you go and look at ACCA's definition, they have combined these two into level 3. So it is only this one. So even though this level is called analysis, application analysis, this analysis level, okay, has been shifted upward. Okay. I'm going to be faster now because I'm hoping you've gotten a certain gist of what I'm trying to do here. Analysis, here are the verbs: analyze, categorize, compare and contrast, discuss, produce. Okay. Evaluate, advise, evaluate, recommend. Okay. I've put these verbs in a particular order. Okay. You cannot apply something you don't understand. You cannot understand something you don't know. You cannot analyze something you can't apply. You can't evaluate something you can't analyze. So there is a accumulation of your capability. So when you start seeing the examiner is telling you, putting in your capabilities, okay, that can you apply, can you evaluate, can you evaluate, can you analyze, can you apply, can you evaluate, can you apply, can you apply, can you apply, they're all level 3. AAR, demonstrate, assess, recommend, identify, evaluate, identify, formulate. Okay, identify is level 2. Okay, but from there, evaluate is a very senior verb, assess is a very senior verb, recommend is a very senior verb. Okay, performance management, discuss, you see where discussion means. Okay, explain, but there is apply. Okay, apply, apply, assess, apply, apply, apply. Okay, so let's go back to that table. He has made it clear to you that that is the level of cognitive ability I expect to see you display. So don't come in an exam and fall short. I didn't tell you, where's this thing? Let's look at those words which are commonly used. You had apply, apply, apply. Okay, this is apply. Is word number 9. Is the lowest immediately after you pass level 2. I've put it in some order. Okay, you had a lot of analyze, you had a lot of discuss, you had a lot of advise. Okay, I also put the assess. Assess is very similar to evaluate. You've had these two. Okay, the capabilities, they are all popular here. Even in fundamental level subjects, they are all popular here. So this is where your examiner is sitting. But your examiner knows that you need this to do this. You need this to do this. But at this level, this is where the marks are sitting. So if you spend time giving me definitions and all the rest, the only module in fact, let me just say the only module. At the professional level, there are two modules where the examiner says defining a principle, you can get marks. Okay? That is strategic business reporting and advanced auditing and taxation. Those two modules, they are all testing particular principles. So in other words, here's a question on consolidation. There are IFRS on consolidation. So stating the IFRS, then applying that, you will get marks. You go to auditing, okay? There are auditing standards for everything. Stating the principle, even whatever you're auditing, if it's a financial reporting issue, you need to state the standards and then draw your audit risk from that. It is only those two modules. At the professional way, stating, defining principle and all the rest, you would get marks. Okay? Stating a principle belongs here. However, the examiner has been very clear that because these two modules, okay, you talk about IFRS, you are testing whether something complies with IFRS. So it either complies or it doesn't. Yet there may be variations in terms of how we approach, but it either complies or it doesn't. Okay? Auditing, you are testing whether something complies with something. So the principle against which you are testing needs to be stated. All the other modules, okay, they are not testing compliance. Performance management is not about compliance. Financial management is not about compliance. Strategic business leadership is not about compliance. Advanced performance management is not about advanced. So if you spend time, if you are doing any of these modules which are not checking whether you understand particular principles which you need to comply with, or you would be qualified. Those are the ones where the examiner says, I do give credit for stating the principle and then applying the principle. It's not enough just to state the principle. You have to state it and then you have to apply it. In the rest of the modules, it's not necessary. Especially if they ask you to discuss. You will see a model answer which starts by defining. And you might think, yes, I also have to start by defining. Not necessarily. Because that's how you end up spending time defining things, then they end up calling you rote learning. Okay? You're giving back principles, defining. So here's what I'm trying to say. Questions which are here at this level, they're drawing these verbs. The examiner knows that you can never be able to apply or synthesize something which you didn't know. So the emphasis shifts from the principle to your application and synthesis and appraisal of the issue. Okay, so if I was to clear this back, when you get to this level, this is all the examiner wants to know. It calls it central evaluation. They want to know, what would you consider if you wanted to fix it? They're asking you, for you to fix something, you have to consider a range of ideas before you can fix something. The examiner wants to know, what would you consider? You only fix something which is broken. For you to know what's broken, you need to exercise judgment. What is the impact of this issue? What is the significance of the issue? How important? You cannot fix something unless we know the importance of that issue. So if you are writing answer a question, you are not telling me the importance, the significance of that issue. And I had used the word produce, advise, evaluate, recommend, discuss, analyze. All of these words belong to level 3. Level 3 is about how would you fix this problem? And what would you consider? You need to know. So, I finished school. By the time I get to 21 years old, I have made 40 Valentines. Okay? I now know that my mother only told me one thing, but there are many different things that I need to take into account. I'm now 21. I'm about to have my own child. And I'm asking myself, what name do I give to my child? That is a problem. I have been learning about how a child is named from the date my mother told me my name and why I'm called Valentine. I have grown up, I've seen so many Valentines, I've seen Julius's, I've seen Peter's, and many different, and I have come to accept that my mother was wrong, but she was right. Also, she was right because I only asked why I'm called Valentine. I did not ask what are the other reasons why somebody might be called a different name. So she was right. But my cognition has developed. Okay? I am now entering 21. So I can apply. I can now say, okay, there are Christian names, there are Christian names, there are non-Christian names, there is surname. I understand the concept of names so well and how names are given so well. And when a name can be given, when a name should not be given. So I am now developing past this level. Okay? And I've come back to say, no, there are many different ways of thinking about a name. I am now entering this analytical phase where I can take an issue and break it down and say, you can name a child by the place of birth, by the date of birth, by this. A child's name can start with V, it means this. My knowledge and understanding and application, that is informed by so many other practical cases I've seen. You talk about this, I know somebody called Valentine, but the reason was this. I know somebody called, you have seen so many applications that you can break down the concept of Valentine. Show so many different angles from which that concept can be true, can be right and still be wrong. You can now engage in an argument with yourself. You can say it is right here, it is wrong here, it can be right here, it cannot be right there. But so you have gone past application. You've now entered this phase. Okay? They often use words like discuss, analyze this issue, come up with something. Okay. Now, but the end goal of all that discussion is so that I can find a name for my own child. So, in the final level, they are simply saying, if you grow up and you become a gentleman, you get your own child, you want to name the child, what would you take into account in naming that child? I'll take into account what my mother told me, or my name. I'll take into account when I went to primary school, what I saw and all the Valentines I've met, and their own reasons why they're called Valentine. When I went to varsity, I'll take into account that. Books I have read, I'll take into account that. Valentines I've met on the streets, I would have applied all that. I'll take all that into account. All those are things I will take into account. But it doesn't end there. Here's the trouble with this level. The things I'm taking into account can be name of city, okay, name of father or parent, name of father, okay, name of godfather, name of a neighbor, okay. Now, when I come here, I'm saying, okay, between name of city, name of godfather, name of parent. Now, these things, they don't carry equal importance. That's why the examiner is saying the significance of, the importance of, why is it? They're asking you, surely by the time you call your child Victor, or maybe, yeah, maybe Mary, or whatever name you choose to give, you will take into account all this. They will all not have equal importance. Some of these points would have more importance than the other. So that if you then ask, so why did you call this child Mary? You can say, I could have called him Juliet. I could have called this, but this is what I take into account. I considered this, but the reason I did not take this route was because of this. And I considered this, but the reason I did not take this route was because of this. And I considered this, and the reason I took this route was because this is the most important to me, and this is why this is the most important. That is why the examiner keeps saying. So why they're asking for my opinion? They're asking for your opinion. If you choose to write this as your first sentence, surely there must be a substantive reason why this is your first sentence, why this is your second sentence, why you left this sentence for that. I don't expect you to write sentences or paragraphs in any order. Because at this level, my expectation is that you are filled with knowledge and understanding. You can relate that knowledge into a scenario. You understand what is important for a business. If the scenario is a business, you have read the scenario. You know that for this problem, their main issue is lack of funding. For this problem, their main issue is market share. I expect you to synthesize so that when you start writing, I must see a correlation between your opinion, the opinion you have formed about what is most critical for that business, and what is your first paragraph, what is just, I expect to see some correlation. So the examiner is saying, I asked you for your opinion. You are giving me some random facts, some of which you have cut it from the case study and you are pasting it back to me. Some of which is just your direct recollection of what you studied, what your mother told you. You are not telling me why what your mother told you is the most significant in this instance. Because the instance I gave you was a scenario. I want you to show me why what your mother told you is still the most important. If it is not what your mother told you, show me what you learned from another scenario, why that is. Give me an argument. So that is why the examiner is saying, you are making statements, and I don't know why it's important. You are not justifying the importance. And making the statement saying, yeah, this is important, is not enough. You need to explain to me why it is important. Now, by the time you realize the examiner is more interested in your appreciation of the importance, of the criticality, your ability to see the issue from multiple different angles. By the time you realize that's what is needed, you realize rote learning, reproducing things and giving it back will not take you anywhere. Because there's so much opinion to argue and defend and substantiate and compare and contrast and come up with solutions. Now, what people also don't realize is, if I rearrange this thing, okay, in essence, I'm saying the goal of all finance, the goal of ACCA is to teach you to solve problems. everything you are learning in ACCA is to teach how to, in fact, not only it's audit, it's teach how to solve problems, okay, as an accountant. Problems that will confront you as a financial accountant, as a management accountant, as a chief operating officer, as a CFO, as an audit partner. ACCA is saying the goal is to solve problems. To solve problems, I need to first give you knowledge. I need to show you how that knowledge can apply in different settings. Then I have to leave you then to come up with solutions to problems. So everything here is about how to fix it. Now, why is that important? Examiner will come and say, discuss. And you finish a discussion question without proposing even one suggestion. There's a big problem. I ask you to analyze. You finish your analysis without proposing one suggestion. There's a big problem. Because everything here belongs to level 3, which is to synthesize. Synthesis means bring it together. Evaluation means assess the worth of this thing. Why are you bringing everything together and assessing the worth? Is so that you can come up with suggestions. So I don't need to use the word advise or recommend for you to know at least. Come up with solution. The philosophical underpinning of any of these verbs is that a solution is expected. The question then is, how far do I go with a solution? It's a judgment call. It's a professional call you need to make. Whereas if you are here, solution is more important. If you are here, solution is not as important. But it simply means here, if you want to say for everything you want to come up with a solution, here for everything you discuss, you can discuss 6 things and only propose solution for 1 or 1 overall solution. But have some suggestion. In any event, when you discuss something, you would argue around that issue. You will look at the issue from multiple sides. There will be points where you agree, there will be points where you disagree. But the end goal of a discussion is to come up with a solution. So areas where you disagree, at least propose something. The examiner wants to see that you have entered this level 3 where you know that the emphasis is whether you can consider things and then come up with solutions. Okay, now it should go relatively faster now. Now, let's keep this thing. We've already talked about it. Okay, so this is where we are. Take note now, okay? The last F modules and this, they are all deemed to be from application upwards. Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I've just highlighted. My next thing is those exam verbs. Okay. Examiners will use advise on a question because they told you in the capabilities you should be able to advise. They use analyze in the question. This is a question because they told you in the capability you should be able to carry out an analysis. They use assess for similar, all these words. They told you from the word go. Okay. Now, to state something, you have to be able to list it. Even inside each category, the words have a hierarchy. State is more senior to list. Define is more senior to state. Even inside this category, there is a hierarchy. Okay? Illustrate is senior to identify. In other words, you cannot distinguish 2 things you can't describe. You can't explain something, you can't distinguish it from related things. You can't identify something you can't explain. You can't illustrate something you can't identify. You can't calculate something unless you can apply. Okay? To calculate, you need to apply some principle. All calculations start with you apply. So you can't calculate something unless you can apply. You can't demonstrate something unless you can calculate any number applicable. You cannot prepare a schedule unless you can demonstrate. Okay? You cannot reconcile unless you can prepare. You cannot solve unless you can reconcile. You can't tabulate unless you can do. I put this thing in a particular order. That means if I ask you to do this, I have asked you to do everything which is here downwards. If I asked you to produce something, I have asked you to do everything which is here downwards. If I ask you to recommend, I have asked you to do everything which is here downwards. Now, it is tricky because if you're going to sit and do all, they're simply, you're not going to finish. They're simply saying, I have asked you a higher level capability, which I expect that you cannot display unless you can display the lower level ones. If I ask you to do this, you do this, I give you good marks because discussion is higher than analysis. You've gone overboard. The problem if I ask you to do this, you do this. Because the capability I was assessing is at this level. Your answer is sitting at this level. I'm going to fail you. So how do we rise to that capability? How do we rise to that capability? It starts by knowing what those verbs mean. Okay. The first problem here is these are English verbs. Okay. You are studying an Englishman's exams. These verbs, they have a definite meaning in English. I've tried to summarize. I'm going to share the slides. I can't go through every single one. I've painted a few. Look at this. Okay. Advise, offer guidance or some relevant expertise to a recipient, allowing them to take an informed decision. It's about coming towards a decision, problem solving. Tips, counsel, inform, notify. Okay. This you might read and it still doesn't make any sense. I'm going to show you how to, analyze, break it into separate parts and discuss the parts. Examine or interpret. Take the concept of Valentine, break it into what are the factors that make up somebody to be called Valentine. Examine each factor. Is it name of city? Is it name of this? Is it name of this? Break that down. Give reasons why name of city. So you say reasons for the current situation. Why was name of city the main issue that made this person to be called Valentine? What happened that caused this thing? You are looking at data, you are breaking down. Because this data is like this, this is what it means. This is happening because this data is like this. Break it down. Okay? Assess. What is the worth of this thing? What is the significance of this thing? How important is this thing to you or to the business? Determining the strengths, the weaknesses, the importance, the significance, the ability of something to contribute. Okay, calculate should be pretty straightforward. If we skip, I'm not going to go through it. Discuss, consider and debate. Argue the pros and cons of an issue. Examine in detail by arguments in favor and against. Look at it from two sides. Just show me that you know both sides of the issue. I'm not interested in where you stand. If they ask you to evaluate or to assess, I'm interested in knowing where you stand. If they ask you to discuss, I'm not interested. I just want to know where you know both sides. Now, if you look at this thing, this is discuss. You see, long before you can recommend or evaluate, the expected discuss is 20th verb. It belongs here. Okay. The expectation is that here you are now moving towards making a decision. Here you are weighing the options. Here you came up with the options. Here you learn how to develop the options. Here you presented the options. Here you weighed the options. Here you say this is the best option. That's why I say advice means, you look at it, advice says offer guidance relevant expertise, allowing them to make it. Counsel inform them. You're not yet saying this is the best. You're saying, to solve this problem, here are the things I am putting on the table. To name a child, here are the things that you should take into account. But you are not yet saying, this is what the best. That's an advice. If I ask you to recommend, okay, a recommendation means you weigh up all the advices. And then you say, this is the best. Now, if I ask you, you see why these ones have split from this? Here, I'm only interested in you seeing the sides of the issue. When you analyze something, you're just saying this issue has 3 sides. It's got 10 sides, not only 2. I'm not asking for which side is more important than the other. Just show me it's got 10 sides. Discussion also is similar. Everything in this category, they just want to know whether, can you see an issue from multiple sides? Can you see an issue of Valentine and know that there are many reasons why somebody can be called Valentine, not just where the person was born, like what the mother said. When you enter here, this zone, I'm more interested in, can you tell me which side is more important? So if I give a question I ask you to discuss, if you don't have a conclusion, it's fine. If you have a conclusion, it's also fine because you've done more than what I asked. But if I ask you to evaluate or advise, I expect a conclusion. Why? Because discussion just want to know whether you know all the sides, not whether you know which side is more important. An evaluation or an advice, you need to take a side, but you need to have appreciated all the sides first. Okay, so you see here it says discuss, consider the debate, write about any conflict, compare, contrast, these, not these, this works, this doesn't work, however this. Now, explain, evaluate, determine in the light of the arguments. If you not, look at this, determine the scenario in the light of the arguments. Okay, here they're asking you to come up with the arguments. Here they are saying, what is the significance of the argument? What do you think in the light of the... So it looks very similar, but they are different. Here, bring up the arguments. Here, weigh the arguments in relation to the scenario that I gave to you. Mention evidence. Point, you have to point to, you see, this calculation is telling me this. This thing is telling me this. Point a case. Support, okay. Now, recommend, advise the appropriate action to pursue. You see, look at somebody, sometimes you use advice, sometimes you use recommend, you think it's the same thing. Look at advice. Offer is guidance, general guidance. To solve this problem, please consider this, consider this, consider this. That is what an advice is. I am counseling you. If I were you, I will consider this, I will consider. But if I ask you to recommend, you say, okay, I have considered this is what I think is the best. That's why it says recommendation says offer appropriate actions to pursue. To say, okay, here is what I advise, but here is my recommendation. So your advice are appropriate suggestions that are conceivable in the light of the scenario. Your recommendation is your particular advice. I'm sure you know there are 2 types of advice. There's advice with SE. There's advice with CE. This is slightly more prescriptive, where you're saying this is the best. It is the highest level of cognition that is being tested. Yeah, recommendation. Okay, right. So I could spend 4 hours just going through these things. I just picked up a few to show you. Then let's bring it. Let's look at exam questions just quickly, and then we can go back and recap on this thing. Okay. I've just taken this from performance management paper. Okay. It's a CBE exam. It was asked, discuss whether an incremental approach to budgeting is appropriate. I just took it because of the word discuss. Okay. I also took this from that same paper. Using Robin Hood University's 5 strategic aim, assess its performance. Okay. So this is the verb. If the examiner say rote learning is taking place, it's because of these verbs. Okay. I just want to share with you, look at the model answer what the examiner wrote as a discussion. Okay. Because I can almost come to you say a discussion is a debate. What exactly does this mean? I want to operationalize that. This is the model answer to the question. It starts by saying, look at the question. Discuss whether an incremental approach to budgeting is appropriate for Yumi. Okay. It's a 6 marks. A discussion is an argument. There should be arguments for. There should be 2 sides of the issue. Okay. If you take these 6 marks, you say 2 sides of the issue. Am I going to give 3 points? So you're going to give 3 arguments for, 3 arguments against. That means 1 side per point. I'm going to do 2 points. 2 arguments for, 2 against. Here's the point I'm trying to make. You don't open the model answer. The examiner says, under an incremental budgeting approach, the current year's budget and results are taken as a starting point of preparing a text. The budget is then adjusted. This is a textbook definition. Please don't do this. Okay? The examiner asks you to discuss. Okay? Discussion belongs, it's a skill which is even higher than application. The examiner knows that you can't discuss something you couldn't apply. You can't discuss something you couldn't understand. You can't discuss you couldn't use. So telling me the definition. So here's the problem. You see that, and then you get students are busy spending time. And then the painful thing is at the end, most people don't finish the exam. Okay. The problem is the examiner starts by giving you this definition. The examiner is trying to write a holistic answer. You need to be able to tell, I don't need this. I don't need to be defining what is increment. If I can go into the advantages and disadvantages, it means I know it. So forget about this. I just put it there because you will see it and you'll be trying to think this is how you must answer exam questions. No. If it is financial reporting, once it's financial reporting and auditing, you can do this type of thing because everything works from a certain principle to comply. This is performance management. Doesn't mean principles are not important. But the goal is not to comply with the principle. As in financial reporting and auditing, which is to comply. The goal is not to comply. The goal is to add value. All the rest of the subject, it is to add value and build a business. Does that mean you use the principle? You have to adapt the principle to suit the circumstance. So you can break the principle, ignore certain parts of the principle. In GAP, you have to comply with GAP fully. You can't ignore aspects of GAP. But incremental budgeting is a principle. It doesn't mean you must comply with it. You take the aspects of the principle that works for the situation which has been asked. So you can ignore elements of the principle, take the parts that you are critical in the light of the scenario, you use that part. So therefore, spending time trying to define, that is where the rote learning starts. Okay, so we have cleared this. Okay, you see I've underlined here the main advantage. Okay, I've put here meaning. Remember I told you, people are writing things, they're not explaining the significance of things, they're not explaining why they are writing certain things. The examiner says, it starts with main advantage. And that's his very first point. Okay? Meaning. Once assessing, however, it tells me this person is trying to build an argument. Even if, okay, it's an indication that there's an argument going on here. However, one of the major disadvantages, okay, is not by coincidence. The examiner puts main here, major here, however here. And then it says means that, okay, meaning. I'm not saying you must go and be using meaning. I'm simply saying when the examiner says you are telling me things and you're not telling me why you are telling me those things, you're not telling me the significance of those things. Okay, this is what he's meaning. If you say it's the main advantage, you have to explain why it's the main advantage and the implications of that advantage. If you say it's a major disadvantage, you have to explain why. And here's the beauty. They are asking for your opinion. They know that you could have read 10 advantages of incremental budgeting, 10 disadvantages. Here's the problem. They're all there in your textbook. The issue is when I give you a scenario, those advantages don't have relative importance. I can give you a scenario of incremental budgeting that involves a mining company. Some advantages would even become disadvantages, and some disadvantages will become advantages, or some advantages will become more important than other advantages. But if I change that scenario from mining to a bank, some advantages which were very important for a mine, they are no longer very important. So what I'm trying to say is, can you not go back and try and dump for me all the advantages and disadvantages you know? Find the main ones. Discussion means you can assess the value. You're already sitting at a very high level where you know things, you can apply things, you know the importance, the relative importance of things. Pick the key ones and show me why they are key for this scenario that I've given you. That's why when I'm marking your script, I don't see you using words like the main reason I'm saying this. The reason why I'm saying this. The reason why this is critical. If you're not using that type of language, I'm left wondering, is he really addressing the question? It means that. Okay. Look at this. Look at this question. Discuss incremental approval budget to discuss whether increment is appropriate for this. There was no requirement to come up with suggestions. Okay. If you follow this definition only, a discussion is just to consider, debate pros and cons, examine the issue in detail by argument. It doesn't say come up with suggestions. Okay. But the examiner expects that you should know that a discussion belongs to level 3. All level 3 has to have some semblance of suggestions, even when not explicitly called for. For at least one of the arguments against, or the main argument against, propose something, because anytime we are here, the goal is to see whether we can fix things. So we are also really testing whether you can do you know how to fix it? Can you come up with some suggestion? If you look at this model answer, examiner will tell you, look at this model answer. Okay, the examiner says, for example, the highest cost, okay, the highest cost is the staff wages, which could be analyzed and could investigate making changes to staff to reduce costs and improve them. That is a suggestion. You are giving suggestions on how to fix, because you have been discussing the pros and cons of incremental budgeting, and you are aware that some of its disadvantages are not without some solutions, and you are aware that discussion means they are testing for problem-solving skills. It belongs in level 3. So even though not explicitly asked, I need to at least have some suggestion. Candidates finish. Some don't know that you must have 2 sides to discuss. Some know that you must have 2 sides, but for the sides that they disagree, they end up with no suggestion. The examiner comes and says, but at the end of the year, this is a discussion, but a discussion also includes coming up with suggestions. But I don't see any. That already narrows the amount of marks I can give you, however good your discussion is. Because a discussion includes, it doesn't exclude. Okay? It is debatable. Look at the examiner. Whether labor cost hit with the number of customers appears debatable. So he's saying, okay, I've debated on this side, I've debated on this side, But this one, there is uncertainty. But I'm saying I can also make a debate here. Now I'm looking at this, okay, yeah, but this looks to me like a discussion. It looks to me like an argument. I'm seeing a debate going on here. I'm seeing an advantage. I'm seeing a disadvantage. I'm seeing the major issue. I'm seeing the less major. I'm seeing the meaning of why this person said this is a disadvantage. This comes across to me. This could become increasingly important issue if the competition. It closes it. It's not a conclusion on which side is more important. It's simply saying, I think it could be an important issue if competition was to come. Okay? Now, that is an operationalization of that word discuss. Okay? If you look at, there is no conclusion. If there was a conclusion, it would be trying to say, I think incremental budgeting is bad. So I suggest we move to zero-based budgeting. There's no conclusion because there's no conclusion. The budgets will provide, and ultimately the budget will provide you mismanagement with little relevant information for management. This could become, I'm simply saying, if we don't do this, this will happen. If there was a competition, this can become increasingly an important issue. And I'm leaving at that. I have not concluded, therefore, whether you should use zero-based budgeting or not. But I have shown you that I can argue it on both sides. I can leave it at that. So a conclusion is not necessary. If you had one, you will not fail, but it's not necessary. So if you are typing one there, you don't want to spend your time writing this nice conclusion, which will not take away your marks, but it will also not add you any marks. The opportunity cost is your time. Look at the next one which talked about assess. Look at what the examiner has done. Okay. The next question was assess the performance. Okay. Look at the choice of words which are used. First of all, it says first. Why does this one start with main and this one also with first? Because both assess and discuss, they generally belong. Okay, I said assess is very close to evaluation. Discussion, they generally belong to level 3. They're testing your opinion. So, right, say my first issue is this. Secondly, this. But make sure whatever you call first is indeed what you consider the most important issue, and justify why it's your first. Okay? Right. Assessment says, look at this. Examiner says, first, blah, 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 blah. And it says, this is not good. Okay? Let's go back to an assessment. We're told an assessment. What is the worth of something? How important is this thing? What is the nature? What is the quality of this thing? How significant is it? Okay. Can it add value? Is it bad? Is it good? Can you quantify how bad or good is this thing? Okay. Now, to assess the quality. So it's not by chance the examiner starts saying, first, this is not good. Because he's doing an assessment. This would indicate that R is indeed developing confident and ambitious goals. This would indicate, it's giving you the meaning, the implications. And he stresses it, indeed. But he knows an assessment is higher than a discussion. So therefore, an assessment includes a discussion. He says, however. So he's trying to demonstrate that a discussion is implied, however, he's going to a debate. It was not a discussion, it was an assessment, but he knows that an assessment includes a discussion. However, okay, he goes to, this should not have any impact on the results. Remember the impact we talked about? He's saying this would have an impact. This would not have an impact. He's trying to show he knows what would damage a business, what would not damage a business. So words like impact, consequence, they start coming through. This infers is interpreting. This is an inference. Okay? Let's go back. If you follow this hierarchy of verbs, this interpret lies just above discuss. Assess is somewhere between evaluate and think. Okay? Without engaging, you did not have to do each of these. Okay? You pick the key where you say an assessment skill, depending on the scenario before me, means I need to look at the worth of this thing, the significance of the issue. Is it good? Is it bad? Does it add value? If it does, where does it add value? And I cannot do so without quantifying the value, without engaging in some discussion, and without also interpreting and making inferences. This, in fact, if you could discuss, then you can interpret. Okay, so these verbs are combined to come up with an elaborate answer to convince the marker that you can operate at a very high level. If you spend time on that, you will not be given this textbook rote learning exam. That is what the examiner is referring to. This guy can engage at a very sophisticated cognitive level. He can assess, he can evaluate, he can discuss, he can come up with inference, he can combine these high-level cognitive verbs and operationalize that in an answer, which gives comfort. Okay, so the examiner then proceeds to say, okay, this infers, he brings an interpretation. Although he's back to arguments in a discussion, not enough, he's back to assessment. Okay, because assessment quantify, is it good, is bad, is it enough, is it not enough? What is the contribution of this thing to this? Not enough, he's back to an assessment. But he's back to a discussion. Only is an indication of an assessment. It's too few. Okay, when I'm reading this, I'm saying, okay, this looks like that high-level answer I was looking for. I'm seeing an assessment is involved with the discussion. All that is included in the meaning of assessment. There's pretty much a rise in the year to date. It is clear that this is where you start taking a stance to show that you have no ambiguity. It is clear that, okay, meaning, therefore, this is an inference, just like this infer. Therefore, however, I'm back to a discussion. This could mean, it's an inference. There's not a name for this inference. It's not a name for therefore. It's just, the examiner just can't be using therefore all the time. You say, this could mean that in the future. That's an inference. That's an interpretation. He's including an interpretation as part of an assessment, because interpret lies above discuss but below an assessment. So that is implied. Now, if you know this, there's no need then to be defining in the beginning. Somebody would have come and say, look at this question. Somebody would have come and to talk about the strategic aims. Somebody will say, strategic aims are the long-term aims of a business. Or performance refers to rubbish. When you carry out this assessment, it will be clear to me you know what strategic aims are. You know what performance looks like. You even know when it is good, when it is bad. So defining for me what strategic aims are, or defining for me what is incremental approach, is useless. Go into it, show your sophistication by operationalizing those verbs. Okay, that's what I look for. Okay, employers could further, the decision has meant, that is the implication. Okay, now it continues, this suggests, meaning it means, okay, far less satisfied. Only this is evidence of assessment, despite this evidence of a debate going on. Inferred, it can be inferred that this is an area of interpretation going on. Under increasing pressure, this is an evidence of an evaluation taking place. Increasing pressure. Okay. So it's not the same words, the words keep changing, but I'm trying to show you why examiners are complaining. Okay. Partly attributable to the reason why this is happening. It actually halved. Something dropped by 50%. I'm saying this is the worth. Not very good. Okay. Good. Why is the examiner saying not very good here? Good here. Only. Therefore, whilst this is a debate, I think then there's a conclusion this time. Overall, there will be marks for this conclusion. But if it was a discussion, you put this conclusion, I will not subtract marks, but I will also not give you marks because I don't need you to discuss. I don't need you to conclude. So if it is there, it will not take away your marks. But it will also not give you marks. But if it is not there in an assessment, you will lose marks. Even so, serious implications. What is the reason? Because it is impacting the main performance indicator, which affect the business internally and externally. So please, guys, that is what the examiner has been complaining about. You are not bringing implications. You are not showing the significance. You are not interpreting the information. You are spending more time just giving back exactly what you learned from the textbook. You are not bringing insights. Okay? I'm going to be quicker. I'm not going to go. Strategy business is another paper. Identify, explain is very low. Look at now verb assesses. I just want to bring another. This is a totally different exam. Okay? This was P5, fundamental level, performance management. This is now strategic business leader. I want to bring in this assess. Okay. Now, this was assessment used in an area that involved numbers. You might think that you only do assessment in an area that involves numbers. No. These other questions still ask you to assess. Assess the role and value of non-executive directors on the board of a person. There's no numbers here, but you can still be asked to do an assessment. Okay? Look at the answer. No, this is for the first one. I've skipped this one. I'm trying to go for this B. Okay, even the first one you see, the main parties. Okay, but let's go. Here are the things I start looking for. Importantly, okay, this is the case for the RECO as can be seen from this structure. Okay, the most important thing I want you to bring to your attention is because you see there are far fewer. Look at all these answers. Those verbs don't come through. Because an assessment is normally seen as an issue that involves numbers, but you need to respect the verb. If they say assess, find a way to use these words like this is crucially important. But you must explain why you say so. You can't just say it's crucially important. This is not as important, but you also must explain, use those words, go to the implications of the issues. But obviously, you have to link it back to the scenario. All of them, because they are high-level verbs. You need to link that to the scenario. Okay? But the scope to do that for a question that doesn't have calculation is fewer. But I wanted to show you that. But you still need to find a way to force it. Because of the verb assess, you need to display that capability. Okay. But if you were to continue this same question, it doesn't finish. Okay? This is B. If you continue the question, towards the back, the examiner is saying, this is particularly relevant. and important. He's still answering this same question. It starts with importantly. It says for this business. Then it starts going particularly important, relevant, and important. It is prevalent. Particularly. Okay? I hope that begins to make some sense to you. Because it was an assessment and there were no numbers, so we can't quantify. You can assess something financially and non-financially. You start to say it is major, it is minor, it is particularly important, it is not as important. It doesn't mean everything must always be major or minor, as it were. So note those. You might be reading and you're not noticing. Okay? But using the word is not enough. I'm more interested in your justification why you say this is particularly important. Why you say this is particularly. So you need to immediately justify why you are making that case. That's why the examiners are complaining. Okay? Look at the next one. Evaluate, explain. I'm almost running. We're almost finishing. I don't want to keep you too long, otherwise everybody starts getting. Okay, evaluate, almost same sort of thing. Okay, important factor, key factor, importantly. A clearly has a significant, additionally, notably, key skill, clear experience, highly desirable, highly positive capability, notably, key competence, key attributes, in addition, very positive attribute, very large aviation, notably, excellent, hugely positive, key leadership skill, hugely positive, critically important, largely, sufficiently, too narrow, because you don't want to go to big, you can also go to the small, too narrow, not sufficiently developed, okay, limited, particularly, little evidence, okay, right. Now, the question was asking, compare two candidates, evaluate two candidates, and come out. The word evaluation is a very senior verb. Okay, it's very close to assess. So you need to show the importance, the significance, too significant. But it enter you with to recommend. Okay, I have explained this to my previous students. Look at this recommendation. It's not by choice. It's not by error. What is this part? The examiner says both candidates have a very wide range of skills, blah, 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 blah. Overall, okay, taking into consideration the current blah, 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 then my recommendation would be to appoint candidate A. You have now declared an appropriate, you're trying to decide which candidate. You've evaluated the two candidates. You are now saying this is the appropriate course of action. Immediately after, guys, immediately after you put a recommendation, your next sentence has to be a justification. All the time. A recommendation must start with what must be done. Immediately after, you must put the why you are saying so. Why? A, he has all the relevant public sector experience together with his experience management. The next sentence, the very next sentence, tries to justify that recommendation. Don't wait and explain yourself, go straight to justification. They're more interested in the justification because it shows whether you know how to bring things which are the most significant to you. They're trying to see, the only way I can know whether you know what is significant for a business given a scenario is the justification, far more than the recommendation itself. So your justification will tell me whether you know what is crucial. But here's how I'm going to judge that justification. Look at this. He has all the relevant public sector experience together with his experience of managing complex things. Look at what I did. I take this and say, okay, I follow this. Okay, this guy was comparing two candidates. He had said candidate B had limited evidence of stakeholder relationships. But he's saying this guy has a lot of experience managing complex. So I take this. I say, okay. He said, I'm choosing this because he's got a lot of experience. What did he say about the other one? He said he's got limited experience. Okay, I can see this, how this connects to this. Okay. He also says, and he's changed, and his changed leadership experience is the other reason why I'm going for him. I take it and say, okay, what did he say about the other person? He had said this other person is not sufficiently focused on change leadership. Okay. So this tells me, okay, because some people think you can just argue things and pick anyone. Sometimes you argue, you pick one, then you say, then you think the justification is to repeat the advantages of that one. No, you will fail. Your recommendation recognizes that all the options before you have pros and cons. But you know at the biggest level what is the most important. When boards meet, they say we are looking for a CEO. Different CEOs will come with different attributes. They all have pros and cons. But what is the most important thing for this business? We want to implement change. So we can weigh all the candidates, but experience with change management would be the overarching thing. So unless you can show that change management was your most important thing, and this candidate, when it comes to change management, is much better than the other candidate, that's when I see, oh yeah, this guy knows the significance. He can make judgments. He can advise the board. He can take a range of things which are all important. He knows how to prioritize them and come up with the most impactful things, and he's going to come up with that recommendation. Then I say, okay, I'm going to give marks. Again, they are testing your opinion as to what is important. This is it. Usually attribute, usually positive, critically important. They are all opinions you are giving and why. And it doesn't mean even the other candidate also had other things that you said was usually positive. I mean, this was candidate A. You said significant, notably, clear experience, this. Even the other candidate, candidate B, you also agreed, very positive, very large, notably. So they both come with very, very significant things. Okay? But you are saying, overall, this is what is crucial, and therefore this is why I'm going with this person. So watch that. Again, is testing your ability to make a call. How would you fix this, and what would you consider? What are the most important things you will consider? Okay? The next one, I'm going to skip this now because I think we've gone a bit too deep into this. I want to go to a different paper. I mean, that was strategic. We've overdone strategic business. Okay, strategic business leader. This still strategic business leader. I want to just jump to a different paper. Oh, sorry, it was still. I think I just had that because he had a lot of those words. I guess if you look at this, look at analyze. Okay, write a report which analyze the information presented in this. We've dealt with recommendation. If you go back here, let's go back. What is analyze? It was part of the strategic capability. If you go back here, what is analyze? It tells us, if I ask you to analyze, I'm saying break it into separate parts. Discuss the parts. Examine each part. Interpret what's going on in whatever I've given you. Try and give reasons for why the situation is the way it is. Or what happened that caused us to be where we are now. Give reasons why this person ended up being called Valentine. And why he ended up not being called Jonathan. What are the things you will consider? You consider name of birth, place of city, and all those things interfere. Maybe he could have been called Valentine if this was going to happen. But because this is what happened, I interpret in future he's going to name his own child this. That's an inference. So that's what is expected of you. But the examiners just come and say analyze. Okay. Some people come, this is what happens, examiners are complaining. People come, they give them data, they say analyze. That's what people do. People come, they look at the data. Where is that thing? They start saying, oh, this one is 142, this one is 191. They start saying B is bigger than A. And they go, oh, this is 228, this is smaller than this. Oh, this increased. I also know this is increasing, is also, that is not, you are describing the data, guys. Look at where describing is. Guys, are you here? Are you guys here? I've been talking for long. I'm not. Guys, are you here?
We are here. We are here, sir. We are here.
Yes,
okay.
we are.
Good. Okay, good. Now, I didn't ask you to describe this description. If you say this is big, when you describe, you say this is big, this is smaller, this is too far, this is. Well, if I say describe a dog, you know, is an animal. It walks. It got 4 legs. If I say explain a dog, it's something else, huh? If I say describe a dog, it's an animal. It's got 4 legs. If I say explain a dog, you have to say a dog barks because. The reason why people keep dogs is because. Explain, you cannot. Explain is a more senior verb. Sometimes they usually people come, they are busy describing the thing they explain. They are not even explaining. And the examiner say, you don't get it. Now, similarly, if I come and say analyze, do an analysis for me. Okay? You better make sure your answer is not here. That's where the rote learning starts. You better make sure your answer is not here. You better make sure your answer is operating at this level. That includes all these things. Well, in other words, for you to analyze, okay, because all of this block belongs to analysis. It's almost asking you to do all of this. Now, if you want to be specific, this analysis. Okay, but all this is implied. Prepare, interpret, illustrate, and all the rest. So keep that in mind. Okay, so if you go back here, people then sometimes examiners will say people read this data, they start telling you this is big, this is smaller, this is also big. They're asking you if you're going to examine the structure. Valentine is tall, the other Valentine is short. But this one is tall, he was born in this year. This one is short, he was born in this year. It looks like there is a correlation between being born on this year and this year, because this year seems to mean short. So this correlation is telling me, bring insights. Don't just tell me this Valentine is short, this Valentine is tall. You are doing a description. Bring, analyze, go into the structure. Why is it the way it is? What is the relationship? What predictions can you then make because of the relationship you see? Okay, so they will give that. Examiners always complain. Candidates look at the data. They describe the data. This is 268. This is this. Look at the examiner's answer. Okay. There's a variance. So he's busy already straight out. He's already comparing something to something. Okay. He's trying to give you whether he sees any relationships. He said there's a variance. Markedly lower. This means you are comparing something to something. Okay. If you were to come back here, now, see, this is what analyze. But everything here belongs to this level, analysis. So what does this tell you? If I use the word analyze, because analysis is everything here, you don't have to limit yourself to see. Compare and contrast lies on top of analysis. The point here is, with this compare and contrast, with this analysis, you have just come straight from a calculation. You calculate, you demonstrate, you produce an audit, then you analyze. On top of that calculation, it's almost like you analyze something financially. You predict the meaning from ratio, and then you say, but non-financially, when I want to compare with others, you bring additional consideration on top of the analysis. All that is still part of analysis. So comparing, contrasting, all the way is still part of that. Now, so once I ask you this, if you end up not comparing, contrasting, okay, showing what is bigger, what is smaller, and why is this bigger, and what does this mean, and all the rest, the analysis has not happened. So if you come back straight out, because the analysis was used, the examiner starts by saying, okay, I need to go straight the variance between markedly lower direct impact. It should be examined further. Okay? This will need to be examined further. Why do you think he's using this word? Okay? Go back to the definition of analysis. You'll find that it talks about examining things. When you examine something, you take a doctor, when you analyze with a doctor, they take your blood to analyze it. They examine that blood. They say, because this blood is here, it means this. But this other part of the blood, I'm not yet so sure, so we need to examine this again further. That's what doctors do with our blood. You see here, it has said to us, analyze, separate the parts, discuss, examine the parts, interpret the part you've examined. The part of the blood which says this guy has COVID virus, say it. But there's another part which is saying we still need more information. Raise it. That is what an analysis means. Is the information complete? Is it not complete? Where it is complete, what does it mean to you? Where it is not complete, what does it mean to you? What extra information would you need? Usually when they want to test professional skepticism in SBL, they will use this type of words. Okay? So it is not by error that the examiner is using those words. He's trying to show you that the model answer itself is built for an analysis and nothing more, nothing less. Now, if you are reading it and you are not paying attention, you will not be noticing that. You would think analysis is the same as a discuss. Discuss is the same as evaluate. Evaluate is you just answer all the exam in the same way. You fail. Okay, that's why the examiner says here, let's go back to where I was. He goes back, I'm comparing, this is markedly lower. Okay, it is notable. Direct impact, this is the consequence of what we are doing. But we need to examine this other part further because information is not complete. Preventable versus preventable. That's a comparing and a contrasting. So if you're not using lower than this, bigger than this, variance, comparing things as part of your analysis, something is wrong. It means you are saying this one, you are just saying this one is tall, this one is short. You are not explaining what is the relationship between being tall and short, and you're not adding any insights. Okay? So preventable versus non-losing. Now look at this. Blah blah blah. If we were to extrapolate is now a word for infer. He's just not using the word infer. Okay? If you go back to this definition that I've tried to summarize for you, an analysis must include an attempt to interpret. Okay? What is an extrapolation? You are projecting something. That is an interpretation. My interpretation, my inference is that this is how this thing is going to proceed from here. So he's not using the word interpret, but he's using, if I was to extrapolate this, you might think, but who says I'm supposed to extrapolate? No, the word analysis requires you to do that. So if you are answering the question, you are not examining, you are not arguing, you are not showing the significance, you are not extrapolating things, then you just know that you are answering your own question, not the question that was asked. Which means you are not displaying the capability that the examiner was interested in. And that capability is what was put at the very beginning, the main capabilities for the module. So why should I pass you? Okay, so let's go back to where we were. If we're to extrapolate, it gives an estimated. All those are inferences. Extrapolation. Preventable versus non-preventable. I think this is significant amount. It is staggeringly high figure. Clearly, there's a significant control problem here. So it brings that together. Look at the next, if you look at the question, recommend to the audit committee with justification. Sometimes they will not even tell you with justification. They'll just say recommend, 8 marks. Look at what we talk about. First, this guy is saying all recommendations are not the same. Let me give you the most crucial one. Recommendation is the highest verb. So your ability to prioritize things. It says first. The first measure which RACO should consider is the installation of ticket barriers at stations with a high level of preventable fraud, which currently do not have ticket barrier full stop. That's what. The very next sentence is justifying. Clearly, he's giving you reasons why he's saying put barriers around this ticket. He said clearly, ticket barriers are a huge deterrent to fraud. He's giving you reasons why he believes huge. He's defending. He started by saying, this is my first recommendation. And he's saying, the reason why I'm saying so is the very next sentence. Clearly, ticket barriers are a huge deterrent as evidenced by the levels encountered at station, blah, 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 all the way here. Obviously, RACO would need to. He's now moving to, I remember we say recommendation, what must be done, why you must do it. Sometimes you can then defend it with the how. How do you suggest this recommendation be carried out? So these sentences are not just being read. So when you write, you must know what is this first sentence for, is to make my point. What is the second sentence for? Is to explain the point. What is the third sentence for? Is to show how the point applies to the scenario. What is the fourth sentence for? It is to show the significance of the point. You must know why you are writing every single sentence. So you release them, okay, in accordance to what you are trying to make. Sometimes you can combine them. But this first sentence is what must be done. The second sentence is why it's being proposed. The third sentence is how that should be implemented. So don't be shooting all over, making this, and I'm looking for this. Be clear. Sometimes they call it professional skills. This guy cannot operate at the professional level. He cannot think logically. This sentence, I can't tie it to the second sentence, and I only get to the fifth sentence before I know how it connects to the first sentence. No. There's a way you structure your work, you present your answer. And then he goes on and says, it defends this how. Blah, 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 blah. Then it is likely that certain event will have significant benefits. So he has a what, he has a why, he gives a how, then he justifies even the how, why he's proposing that we do it in that particular way with a significant benefit. I come up from, this looks like somebody who can propose a course of action. Let's go back. What is a recommendation? I go, this is what I read. An Englishman knows a recommendation, if it's a good one, this is what he knows, okay, is an appropriate actions to pursue in terms of the recipient will understand. Give other. So put the action in a manner that the person who is taking, it's almost like a doctor gives you a list of prescription. The handwriting is so bad, it's written in technical language, you can't even read it. Then that's not a prescription. It should be a number of actions which are clearly written. How do you make sure it is clear? There should be a what must be done. There should be a why it must be done. There should be a how you think it will be done. So when your boss or the board looks at it, it's clear. what needs to happen. When I read that, I say, yeah, but this looks like a very serious recommendation. I give the marks. If you start shooting a random 0 point, put bullet points left, right, and center, hey, do this, do all over the place, no clear, consistent course of action, I can't say, I just fail you. Okay. So these words, guys, if you were not taking care of them, they will take care of you in the exam. All examiners are complaining about that. I have just picked a few and I've tried to operationalize them to show you what is going on in the model answers and what you may not be paying attention to. So I am now concluding okay. If you go to the next, a further measure would be to expand the sometimes you combine the what and the why. Look at this. A further measure will be to expand ticket offices and employ more staff at offices. I've just put there, this is like a to reduce. I can see this continuation is the why. It doesn't have to be in two separate. In order to reduce queuing time for customers, I already have my what, I've got my why. Okay, but now you can go further. Clearly, customers are likely to be frustrated by having queue. Particularly, you are now giving further substantiation why you believe this recommendation is crucial. Then let me judge your work. Sometimes, if you know that your recommendation has limitations, you can also propose actions to cope, because there's no recommendation which will not. You can say, although it would cost more money to carry out this recommendation, the benefits would outweigh this cost, because recognize the limitation in your recommendation. That's fine. Look at this. The examiner says, RECO could also consider the introduction of online ticketing booking. That's the what. This is the why. It would seem that the company is indeed behind its company. It's giving you the reasons why it is saying, please introduce online ticketing sales. Why? Why do I say so? You are behind the competitors. Competitors already gone online. So I'm thinking that you should also go online. That is my why. But he recognized that there are limitations to this, because sometimes they will tell you ABC is a company, it's running into resource constraints. I can't tell you the company is running. They just come up with recommendation which add to the cost. You need to be sensitive to the scenario. Then you say, obviously, this will be a significant investment. It's saying, obviously, I know there is a downside to this recommendation for the company and a major undertaking, but you justify, make your argument. You can disagree with yourself and agree. It's okay. A recommendation is a very high-level verb which suggests you know how to discuss, you can argue your way around an issue. You know that certain proposals you make are not without adverse consequences. But you are critically aware that those adverse consequences can be mitigated. It is far better to recognize the adverse consequences of your own recommendations, but propose the solutions, than to just propose a recommendation as if it's got no adverse consequences. It shows you can't think at that strategic level. That is what is going on here. So on that note, guys, the goal was to finish at 3. It's 12 minutes to 3. So we were trying to understand how the capabilities relates to what the examiners are looking for. One, we looked at the capabilities and how they are examined. We looked at what examiners are complaining about, their main concern all the time. What were they? This is professional level. This is high level stuff. Please don't give me rote learning. Please, you have to appraise, you have to analyze, you have to evaluate. Examiners were saying people will calculate when it gets to time to appraise what they calculated. They run away. When they do, they put everything they know about the subject and nothing applied to the scenario. Even if they applied, they either did not appraise, they did not assess, they did not explain the meaning of what they are saying, and the implications, and the impact, and the significance. Things that are major, they write it as if it's minor. Things that are minor, they write it as if it's major. Or they just write things as if everything have equal importance to a board of directors. So I end up reading their scripts. I don't know what is important, what is not important. They make statements. I don't know why they made these statements. I'm not even sure they read the scenario. So as a result, I'm left with a statement which I'm reading on the answer script. I cannot tie it back to the scenario. And I'm marking scripts where the way business is done in different parts of the world is different. ACCA is a global exam. Our approach to business in Africa may be different in Europe. We all have our different opinions. The culture of business is different. I have given you a scenario. I expect you to come forward and justify what you consider to be important and why it is important. So that even if I don't agree with you because I am your examiner and I'm sitting in Britain, in UK, but I'm culturally attuned and sophisticated enough to know that the way a concept is applied and approached in different parts might be different. So I have the opportunity of getting why you consider certain things significant or not. But you end up not telling me why you're making the statement. You don't tell me the significance, the impact. So you just write to me as if everything is equally important. Okay? But yet I know that at the strategic level, at the professional level, you are now operating as a senior manager, as a senior director. Everybody is pressed for time, so your ability to digest, sift through information, and present succinctly and the most critical issues and why they are the most critical and argue your case. I cannot see that capability coming through. I ask you to analyze, I ask you to discuss, I ask you to recommend on the same exam. All your answers, the tone are exactly the same. But I'm busy changing the gear. This one I say assess, the other one I say recommend, the other one I say discuss. Your tone is exactly the same. Your depth of analysis is exactly the same. And I say explain, which is very low, or describe. Your tone is exactly the same. I'm finished, I'm thinking, do you even know what is going on here? Should you even be at the strategic level? Has your cognitive ability developed beyond level 1? Should you even be at the professional level? It's asking serious questions about how you think, how your university education prepared you for this stage. It's saying your university education did not prepare you for the stage. That is the reason why you are giving me these answers. Here's the good news. The fact that examiners' reports are saying that, it means it's a worldwide problem. So there is nothing we say is unique to Africa or to South Africa. It's a worldwide problem. Maybe the level differs, but it's a worldwide problem. But they keep saying people who fail, this is what they are doing. People who pass, this is what they are doing. This is what it says the same apart. So I was trying to use this today to show you that we can fix it, okay? By understanding those intellectual levels and the exam verb hierarchy. Clearly, I didn't go through all. You could see there are almost 26 verbs. Okay, I've just picked the ones which are the most crucial. They're almost like 60% of every exam, you find them there. Okay, embedded in each of those verbs are serious understanding of. You can read those definitions, you will still not know the difference. until you see how they are translated in different types of exam questions. Then you start, oh, they look like similar. Of course they are similar because 3 verbs belong to one category and they are testing one particular cognitive ability. But there are slight variations between them. If the more you know those things so clearly in your mind, by practicing questions and reviewing the examiner's answers, underlining those words and say, so you need to take 5 questions which they use discuss, see how it is presented. 5 questions which they use recommend, see how it is presented. 5 questions which they use explain, see how the answers are put. 5, do that. By the time you do that, for all those other ones that we've not gone through in this 3-hour revision, you will get a very clear sense what each verb means, and therefore how to build your relationship with those verbs. I really think that would, and I say this from years of experience, not only just agreeing with what examiners are saying, from my own marking. Okay, I mark scripts and I say, my goodness, where do I start with this candidate? And you can see, if this guy has the knowledge, it means he's been going through his notes, he's been going through his book, he's got the knowledge, he's giving it me back. Okay, it means this guy is not lazy from this script, or else where is this knowledge coming from? Okay, he's not lazy, but he's just not rising to the level which is needed. So is it a mindset issue? How do I work on this mindset of my students? Now you start an ACCA course 3 months before the exam. It's hard to change mindsets. Okay, because there's a part of teaching you the content, there's a part of telling you ACCA is a different animal. The level of cognition and subtlety is a different animal. And we have to do that within 3 months to prepare for exam. It's not easy. Okay, so I'm hoping that whilst we still have, as we enter into this revision phase, which is now starting, I mean, we're going to break you down into different subjects. Some of you are breaking into SBL, AFM, where we go back into the detail. Each of your lecturers know these things. If you go to AAA, they will use these things to show you how to apply it for AAA. If you go to SBL, we'll show you how it is done. If you go to performance, but it's the same principle. Obviously, the nature, the content of the subject will help us customize that. But if you are not taking these principles to all the subjects, you cannot pass one ACCA subject. You can write and write and when you pass, if you manage pass, for those of you who don't know these verbs with this level of detail, if you have ever passed an ACCA module, you probably find that you barely just got 50%. And let me tell you what 50% means. Your script is marked twice by 2 different markers. ACCA compares the 2 results. If the results are within 5 percentage points, independently marked, they conclude the marking, they take the higher of the 2 marks. If person A marks, person B marks, the results are outside 5 percentage points, it goes to a 3rd marker to independently mark. The 3rd marker does not know what the first 2 markers gave. So the view is that if 2 markers mark and they both are within 5 percentage points, one gives you 50, the other one gives you 45, then it's close enough to accept the higher of the 2 marks it ends. They don't even do average. This means 50% may well mean that one marker gave you 50, the other one gave you 45. And because they take the higher of the 2, that's how you survived. So the point I'm making is, if you don't know these verbs, they define those capabilities, and the exams are set on the capabilities. So if you don't grasp these verbs, you cannot pass. If you pass, you barely just scrape to 50%, which means you may have truly failed. If they took the average of the higher and the lower mark, you may have truly failed. So I tried to define the verbs, but I knew that a direct definition is not good enough. You can still really say, I know this version. So what I tried to do was to operationalize how those verbs are translated into model answers. Those model answers are not my model answers. Those are examiners' model answers. They are the same examiners who wrote those examiners' reports with the consents. So it will be interesting to see if an examiner is saying candidates are not appraising, they are not explaining the verb. It will be interesting to look at their model answer. I have shown you what to look out for in the model answer. So you understand when they say those things they are saying, you understand what they mean. Because the only way to understand what they are saying you are not doing is to understand the model answer. And underline those things I've underlined so that you know where the clear differences are. It is for you now to come back and say, okay, maybe the way I was studying was different. Maybe I did not know this, or I knew this, I just didn't know what they mean. Or maybe this, I already knew this course has not added any value. Okay, it is also possible. Some people may have joined this course. I know there are people from all over Nigeria, South Africa, everywhere. If it hasn't added any value, my apologies. I would say join then the specific revision courses, which was meant subject by subject. It was meant to be a generic revision course, hoping to add value across a range of subjects based on common mistakes that students make. If it doesn't add value, it will be probably because you are one of those candidates. Because examiners are not saying everybody is doing that. They are saying those who fail, this is what they are doing. Okay, it means you are one of those candidates who got it, and therefore you are not included in the concerns examiners have been raising. Okay, hopefully it just reinforced what you already knew. For those of you who didn't know, please just work ahead. Okay, that's why I'm concluding with an assignment. Say, okay, I'm not going to give you an assignment, go prepare something and send to me. Your assignment is, yes, whilst you break now down and intensify your revisions, module by module, okay, your assignment is to go back. I'm going to share these slides later on, okay, and even my videos will be shared. Is to go back. We didn't do justice to this, just 3 hours. We only took 10% of the verbs. Is to go back and consolidate your understanding of those verbs I've got in brown and make sure you consolidate for the other verbs so that any verb thrown at you, you should almost be clear in your mind. This is what this verb means. And then you start taking that and applying that to the individual modules that you are studying. Make sure when we do our e-campus thing, we do have Mock 1, we do have Mock 2. I'll be expecting that because Mock 1, which is on CBE, your exams are going to be serious. Your Mock 1 is almost like 2 weeks from now in the various different modules. This is the type of game you're expected to bring into these mocks. This is the level of sophistication you're expected to bring. So take what you've gotten from there, go practice it, practice questions, look out for those things. Come try Mock 1 in your individual modules. Let us mark, okay? Show you where you come short. You have another opportunity again as part of this, our e-campus thing. You know, for you to do another CBE bid mock. So whether you are in Nigeria, anywhere part of the way you are, you can still join this program, do the mock, give us the opportunity as lecturers who know what these verbs mean and the level to look at what you've done, come back to say you could improve on this, do the first one, do the second time, let's debate those answers in class. Hopefully then that brings you closer to what you need to be doing to do well in your September exams. On that note, guys, so that's my assignment to you in terms of your preparation, which is this last aspect. So on that note, I have come to end of what I wanted to share. It's exactly 3 minutes past 8. It was meant to be a 3-hour session. Maybe I could just leave it. I just want to open up for the next 15 minutes. We should close in 15 minutes. I just want to hear. It's me who has been talking for 3 hours. I haven't given you any of your chance to talk. Okay, anybody wants to, anything that I said which is not clear to you, okay, or a comment you want to pass, please, I'd like to hear any comments, any inputs from what we have covered today. Yes, guys, over to you.
Mr. T, I asked Jeffrey his question, but actually it's more he wanted to thank you, so I'll read it to you. You said
is that the guy who was trying to talk from Zimbabwe?
Yes, we had network issues.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Okay. You said this has been particularly important for me as a student who got exemptions, and I will be taking my first ACCA exam. What you said is very true, especially concerning the overall approach to of ACCA and how it differs from university's approach. I've been struggling a lot with the transition, but this lecture has clarified a lot for me. Now I can effectively review my model answer. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. I like the last part. I can effectively review my model answer. The word effectively. Because everybody has these model answers. We all have it. And we are going through. The question is whether we are going through effectively. Are we seeing what we should be seeing? Or we're reading these words like number, you saw significant, notably, crucial, important. Or we just realize this is one of those words. So we're not noticing that that is what the examiner, and we're not noticing that when he makes a recommendation, it comes with a justification. We're not noticing all those things. So if Jeffrey is saying, I can now apply myself, I understand where there's a transition gap, I now know how to effectively review the model answer. In fact, if you look at that's the conclusion, one of the things I asked you to do. When you review model answers, look for these signs. Why is this answer the way it is? Okay. Or it's because it's a discussion question. And ask yourself, if this question was an assessment question, what would I have done differently? If it was a recommendation, what would have changed? Okay. When you do it like that, you become so intimately engaged. You almost know, okay, this is a level. If they ask me this, I could. So don't just look at the model answer. Look at it and say, oh, it is the way it is. All discussion questions tend to have this, however, this. When it's an assess, they tend to have this type of words. When is they tend to have these words. Then you almost then know, oh, this is how it works. That's what this Jeffrey says, effectively reviewing the model answer. That is important. Because a lot of us see model answers. We have practice and revision kits. We read it. And we think we understand it, but we don't. And we end up trying to cram it. And then when an exam can want to give exactly what we saw in that model answer, and we don't relate it because we have not dynamically engaged with that model answer to understand clearly why it is the way it is and why it differs from each one. So if it helps him effectively review, that is one thing, guys, you need to effectively review your model answers. Obviously, you practice questions under term conditions. You review what you got right, what you wrote, but you review that model answer effectively to understand the level of cognition that you displayed in your actual answer. So, thanks for sharing that. I'm happy he could type. Guys, anybody else? Anybody else has an input? I'm using these inputs to re-clarify angles from which you guys can take this assignment and then continue with the learning journey. Guys, any other person with an input? Who else has a perspective? Okay, it looks like guys, on that note, I wish you well. For those of you who are part of the eCampus course, you now move to your respective classes where this discussion will be taken further subject by subject for AA, AFM, and all the rest. Your lecturers have the same understanding of each of the modules, and they will try and help you operationalize that for module by module and assist you to do well with your mocks and all that, and eventually your September exams. Best wishes, and guys, I will chat to you again as we move forward. Thanks, bye. Okay, bye, guys.